it's a bit unfortunate. So maybe I can start a little bit, and when it's, it will allow, I think, soon. Anyway, so our presentation is called Lego Microtonal Guitar for playing microtonal music and teaching music theory. So it all started 4 years ago when my 7-year-old son, Atlas, at that time, built my adjustable microtonal guitar. Can you hear me?
Yes, we see okay. You, we hear you very well.
Okay. So he built my adjustable microtonal guitar fretboard out of Legos. So, and he told me, why don't you, use this idea on the guitar, real guitar? And then, I was skeptical about his idea at first, because I thought, it's already being done at some place of the world. And then, of course, we checked out all Lego guitars on YouTube and on Google. And what we realized was really interesting, because all Lego guitars up to now has everything made out of Lego except the fretboards. Of course, probably because of the no need for exploring the tuning systems.
We have lost you, Tolga. Okay, Rusen, can you?
Hello.
We lost Tolga.
I can text him.
Yeah, thank you.
Right now. I think his connection was unstable, like when he started, but let me call him. Just wait a minute.
Sure.
Okay, let me continue. Okay, I think he is here now.
Yes.
No, he's not here. Okay, let me continue with the technical part of the project.
Thank you.
I'm Rusen. I'm doing PhD in sound engineering in ITU, and I'm a luthier located in Istanbul. Let me share my screen when Tolga gets ready.
Great.
Actually, this.
Sorry, guys, I'm back, Rusen. Agustin, when was I frozen? I don't know when it stopped.
Like 3 minutes ago.
Oh my gosh!
You were talking about the fretboard. So and then Rusen, you were talking about the fretboard and the work.
Okay, Agustin, I want to try one more. Can you make me co-host, please?
I cannot do this because Maria Hertz.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm already co-host now. I will try one more time. So now, can you see my screen?
Maria.
Yeah, it works now.
Okay.
You can continue.
Let's try one more. So, okay. Here are I will pass quickly because, our time has gone. So this is how my son came up with the idea by imitating the adjustable fretboards. And then when we checked out the Lego guitars, we see that no one had an issue about the fretboard because everyone was so concentrated on playing 12-tone equal temperaments. So I think almost all the Lego guitars that we find on internet were Lego guitars, and the fretboards were standard fretboards. So my son insert the Lego fretboard onto my classical guitar and gave me this brilliant idea. To place this Lego microtonal guitar in microtonal guitar history, I can go back to the first microtonal guitar in London by Perrone Thompson in 1829. This slide is from John Schneider's presentation in Istanbul at Microtonal Music Festival, Microtonal Guitar Festival 2 years ago. So as you can see, this is the first microtonal guitar in 19th century. And I think the Lego microtonal guitar is maybe can be categorized as like revitalizing the first microtonal guitar because they are similar. So instead of these holes, we have Lego studs, and the Lego frets are movable, just as on the Thompson's guitar. So it's interesting, I think. Anyway, so now Rusen, it's on you.
Okay, let me share my screen. Like when we start the project, let's see, it's running. Okay. Tolgahan had like the first something on, like it was like a first prototype when we start the project together. But the problem was the inserting the Legos on the fretboard. Like the machining of this was difficult to reduce them, and there was a problem to put them in correct places. Like the dimensions of frets must be in very precise positions. So it was difficult to make it by hand. Like removing the fretboard and inserting the Legos were kind of impossible to do by hand. Like it's possible, but it was very difficult to catch the correct positions. Then like we take it away and clean it and start that from the beginning and design a new system for that. So in that system, first like we do some 2D drawings and specify the positions with like microtonal points and also the regular fret points, which is used in the equal temperament system. So after that, like we did some 3D modeling on the fretboard, and then we built that base plates to put Legos precisely on the location. Then after that, like after these pieces were ready in design phase, we did some trials on 3D printer. So we had them. We used this method, and this method is kind of it was very helpful because it was replicable. Like everybody can do that by them, like in their studios or in their homes. We tried different materials with different dimensions also. Also, like we redesigned the fret system because in the beginning we were thinking to put little metal frets, and we were thinking to input them in a Lego block, then put there, but it was very difficult also. and after we tried that with this plastic material by 3D printing, it worked well and it was very precise. So we just continue using these frets, and we did some different alternative frets for different microtones also. Now also we have some fretless frets, this kind of stuff. Okay, and at the end we have this system. Like in this one, you see like regular frets, and these are like some fretless frets. Probably Tolgahan will explain them in detail. That's it from my side. Like these steps were mainly the technical part of the project, and Tolgahan, you can continue from now on.
Okay, thank you, Rusen. I will share my screen. Can you?
Yeah, I stop it now.
Okay, I'm going to share it again. Okay, so hang on. Yes. Then this is a slide about inserting the real Lego bricks into the fretboards. And we did this with my son, and we would like to mention Selçuk Keser, who was the sponsor of this project. So thanks to him, we 3D printed many materials, and we tried many things and finalized this. Now, learning music theory on the Lego Microtonal guitar. First, I would like to show you a little video. Evet. Do majör gamma. So here you can see that the Lego guitar is 5-fretted. So this guitar has only 5 frets. And my son just started playing the guitar during that time. And so, you know, he was trying to learn. And I made him insert 5 frets. So, you know, it was also playing a game, like a Lego game. And then it was also easier to play these big, some of them are very big frets. Like as you can see, the first fret, Do or C on A string, is just a huge fret that only gives C. And this is not all of it. Then by changing some of these frets locations, I also, you know, teach him some minor scales, modes like Dorian, Phrygian mode. So, you know, I realized that this is a good, you know, tool to teach music theory for, especially for kids, of course. Here I teach Atlas again, but this time a pentatonic Balinese Pelok-Selisir scale. So in an octave, he managed to play this Balinese pentatonic scale by again changing the fretlets locations. Then I decided to use this at the conservatory I'm teaching in Istanbul. We also have a middle school inside our conservatory, and our 6th grade student Ejrin, we spent 2 hours of our lesson with the Lego Microtonal guitar, and I was able to teach her 18 different scales. 4 of them are microtonal, and also others are some modes and, you know, some other scale. So I will show you here. Now you will watch pentatonic, Balinese pentatonic, but first minor pentatonic, of course. Then Dorian mode and Hüseyini makam scale, as we use Dorian microtonal one in the Anatolian folk music. Yes, as you can see, teaching scales is like, it's more fun than the, I think, standard scale teaching on the guitar, especially for the beginners. And then, of course, the advantages, also you can teach microtonal scales, any scale that you want. Because we can play any microtonal music genre on this guitar. So with our fretlets that Rusen just showed, so the bump, we can design it at the sides, in the middle, or in anywhere. So you can also play the just ratios in just intonation, or also you can play mean tone temperaments or well temperaments. But now that also we have fretless ones, you can also have this hybridity. I will show it soon. Playing microtonal music on the Lego microtonal guitar. First, this guitar is, you can play also the standard repertoire in 12th tet as well. So it's like a normal classical guitar. So just to demonstrate you, here is Asturias. But now I would like to play you a Greek folk music with some microtones arranged by Benjamin Barbaric. Here it uses second degree and sixth degree microtones, and it's like a Dorian mode scale. We say Hüseyini makam, and this piece uses those microtones. And here is a Balinese gamelan piece composed by Chris Charles for the microtonal guitar. Here is just the theme of it. We also play some Australian rock band King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizards pieces because they have 3 microtonal music albums. We can say the microtonal rock albums. Here is from KGLW from their latest album. King Gizzard tune that I arranged. Okay, then I think it was last year but they announced it in this March. We won the People's Choice Award at Gottman Musical Instrument Competition, and thanks to this award, they produced a video for the guitar, and also the acclaimed guitarist Kaki King. We made the guitar for her and sent it to New York. So, she played that guitar. So we can watch her now. I am Tolgahan Çogulu in Turkey.
And I'm Rusen Can Çogulu. We are the designers of the Lego Microtonal guitar.
And I'm Rusen Can Acet, the builder of Microtonal guitar.
When I first saw the Microtonal guitar made out of Legos, simply stuck on top of a guitar fretboard, I thought, this is perfect.
When I first played that Microtonal guitar, I was really excited and I couldn't sleep that night because of excitement.
As a designer, this is such a great design because when you see it, you know how to use it. You immediately imagine what you can do with it.
It's fun talking to my dad about guitar.
So now we built 3 in total. So after Kaki King, the guitar went to Makgırgiç, to LA, to Los Angeles. So now Makgırgiç is experimenting on the guitar. And also we made one for the YouTuber guitarist Lucas Prar and sent one to Sweden. And now he's preparing a video. And also we start selling the guitars. So because it is easy to and quick to build these guitars. Then the YouTuber Simon the Magpie built one for the bass, and Andreas Graner played this Lego Microtonal bass.
Done with guitar by a Microtonal, really cool guitarist guy. He did it with his son, I believe. Frets. The cool thing is that we can go super tiny fret, like a one.
Oh yeah,
one
yeah.
square.
Yeah, one string fret. Like it's only one string that has that fret.
This is probably a really nice material to slide on.
Ja.
Plastic slide.
Yeah, so the final thing, as Rusen mentioned, the fretless Lego bricks was a new idea for us. So we inspired them, but we were also inspired back from them. So of course, I immediately applied this idea on our prototype. And here is the result. So this makes the guitar a hybrid instrument by using fretless guitar and microtonal guitars and the standard guitar, of course. And I think it's very multifunctional and very useful. So I played a complete Rast Taksim, an improvisational opening for the Turkish makam music in Rast makam. Rast makam has a major-like scale with just major third ratio, just major third with 5/4 ratio, and just major seventh with 15/8 ratio. But also, whenever it is descending, you need these third and seventh degrees moves. So you need to glide them, have a glissando toward to tonic or to lower parts. So I also want to play as a final video. I would like to play this beginning of this taksim in Rast Makam. Therefore, we preserve, still we preserve the timbre of the standard classical guitar, except 2 degrees of the makam, which are fretless and which are movable frets. So, this has advantages like you can still use an harmony, like you can have chords with sustain. The main drawback of the fretless guitars is that the limited polyphony and the problem of the sustain. So here you can have a compromise on this Lego guitar, the hybrid Lego guitar with the added small fretless Lego bricks. So this is the summary of the Lego microtonal guitar's journey. It's been 1.5 years that after the production, and we hope that it will be played around the world, and it will be used at the conservatories or the music schools also to teach the guitar, and maybe also used to play microtonal music. Thank you very much.
Wow! Congratulations! Yeah.
Thank you, Agustin.
Very nice, yeah. Amazing possibilities, yeah.
Thank you very much.
I would like to ask in the round if there are any questions. Otherwise, we have here a few questions. Anyone wants to throw the first question, please?
May I?
Yes, talk.
Hi. Yes, thank you very much for that presentation. That was so interesting. My wife, Nora Louise Müller, and our 5-year-old son watched and were very inspired. My first question is, and maybe I missed it, licensing from Lego or industry trademark copyright? What's the issue with using their design?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the great question. Of course, I try to contact with Lego, and to be honest, Lego Turkey supported us so much. So they shared our award, and so the Turkish office was enthusiastic, and also they sent Atlas 2 big Lego Beatles portrait of toys. So he made John Lennon and Ringo Starr that I see now in the living room. Anyway, so I contacted 3 different branches of Lego. Lego Foundation, Lego Education, and Lego Ideas. So, Lego has these sub-branches. And I got responses from Lego. The official response was, they couldn't see a commercial possibility on this design, and so they say keep up the good work.
Amazing.
So they let us free. And also Lego Ideas said that they couldn't take ideas from kids under 13 years old, which sounds a bit weird, because if we were able to put this design to Lego Ideas, it gets voted, and when it gets more than 10,000 votes, then it gets to the Lego's board of executives to be discussed as a commercial. But they have a rule that it's not accepted under 13-year-olds. So Atlas is still 10 years old. So anyway, but in my opinion, that's also a great commercial product for Lego stores, because it brings the world's most popular instrument, guitar, with most popular toy, Lego. And it's not a toy, it's a multifunction. You can also play serious stuff on this. Anyway, but we start producing and selling it. So I hope, it will get popular in the future.
Thank you. I'm so glad that they are supportive. That's good news. Thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely. Any more questions around?
Navid has...
Navid, yes.
Yeah.
Please.
Nice to see you, Navid, here.
Nice to see you, Tolgahan, too. Thank you so much for this presentation. As always, very innovative and fascinating. I loved it. If you were to compare this to your microtonal adjustable guitar, what would be the advantages and disadvantages of each of them? I'd appreciate if you tell us about that.
Thank you. Great question. To be honest, this new feature, this hybridity with the fretless bricks, makes it superior to the adjustable one. So that feature is great. And now when I play some serious makam music, now I start also playing Lego guitar. So it has a great advantage. The drawbacks are sometimes my guitar is it was made of a very cheap guitar, so it was like maybe 20 euros something, because we destroyed many guitars with Rusen, so I couldn't get of course the classical guitar sound that I want. Maybe if we in the future, when we have money, if we have a serious professional Lego guitar, I can also use it in the concerts. But now I can say that I cannot use this at my concerts, because the guitar is a very cheap guitar. I think the drawback is that. So they have both advantages, in my opinion.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, may I ask you something, Tolgahan?
Please,
yeah, congratulations to all of you. Really great. And yeah, so for the students or for you that you play both, I mean, what are the sensations for a student or for yourself, or the sensations playing on a Lego guitar and then coming back to an ordinary guitar? I mean, how...
I see, not so much difference. Maybe a little bit difference for the glissandi, for some slides. You can still do the standard slides, but sometimes it's how can I put it?
It gets stuck.
It feels different. You can do it, but it feels different. So maybe that's one issue that you have to get used to. Some other issue. If you bend it, of course, it's also an issue for my adjustable guitar. You cannot bend it, so don't bend it, and don't make an electric guitar vibrato. But if you do the classical guitar vibrato horizontally, it works. I think it's not a big thing, so it's easy to get used to.
Okay, yeah. And by the way, I didn't know about these details of these slides. I think this is a genial idea, really genius idea. And yeah, so of course my question, first thing that comes to my mind, are you planning to incorporate this kind of slides or some kind of slides to your adjustable guitar?
Very good question. Yes, absolutely. We are thinking about it. We finally, after 13 years of the adjustable journey, this week we are founding a company. Finally, after 13 years.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because we finally got a state support. It takes time in Turkey. Anyway, so it's called Microtonal Guitars, the company, something else. Anyway, and one of our projects is that you say, Augustin, to have these kind of cubes, which has the same features, which has fretless. So, you insert those brick-like cubes inside the slots, and you can have these fretless areas.
More possibilities. I mean, it's really impressive. Yeah.
Yes,
amazing.
So exciting.
Yeah. Me too.
I think that's very good for education for children, as they are accustomed to Western music. They will learn again the traditional music of the Orient. And when they have bricks of Lego on the right position, afterwards they can leave it and can play it with their hearing. And
yes.
I think, and that's a very good thing for education in music. It's fantastic. It's really fantastic. And that's the future for the music in Turkey and in all Oriental countries. I think it's
definitely.
Yes, and also if someone concentrates on it, so to give a time, just intonation, of course, can be also. And also the Renaissance mean-tone tunings, because
Vicentino.
Yes, Vicentino's 31 tuning. So it just depends on the locations, and of course you can prepare layouts for children, like building tutorials, and yes, you convert it to Vicentino tuning. Yes, these are all possible, but I hope some other guitarists than me can get this and concentrate on having projects. So we need people.
It's a lot of work. Yeah. And by the way, can I ask you a last question, and then I go back to the group, because of these Lego colors, are there any color visual associations in the learning process? Are you using specific colors for connecting them to the different macans or different scales that you're using?
For the first prototype, it was just chaotic. It was colorful fretboards. But for the new ones, for Lucas Brar and Kaki King, we Atlas especially made some coloring but we didn't do it for like follow the red bricks for Rast Makam. We didn't do that, but we did it for first fret, second fret, because Atlas told me that when he sees that the seventh fret is pink, for example, he memorized the piece easily.
Yeah, this
so,
is
so we use that approach. So it's a simple approach, but of course you can have any color that you like. So you can when you have your Lego guitar, you can say I want these colors for my guitar. So you can have any Lego colors that you like.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any more questions in the group? We still have 2 minutes.
And as I see Hans Gunterlock here, I can say that, of course, you can use this Lego guitar for ball and pierce as well.
Yes, we should try that. And I was enjoying you have a microtonal background singing.
Yes. Yeah. So, for example, we can have one guitar just for ball and pierce. We can, arrange all the fretboards accordingly. And then, the students or the guitarists can compose and play on that guitar, especially.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's more flexible. Actually, this idea, of course, one of the first things that come to my mind, this interchangeable fretboard. But
Yes.
these with Lego, they are much more flexible. I mean, you have many more possibilities actually, and it's easier.
I think so.
guess.
It is unlimited. Of course, in the interchangeable, I like interchangeable fretboard guitars, but you need 30, 40. It has all different, because also the key changes. So you want a Werkmeister 3 in B, so you have a specific one. But when you move them, it's practical.
Yes, very. Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Maybe more questions we can write in the chat box.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you very
much. Fantastic. Yes, so we are moving forward, and so I'd like to present Rami Chahin. His presentation is Microtonal Music Classifications in Theory and Education. Rami Chahin is a Syrian-German composer, theorist, and musicologist. He did his PhD in music composition and theory, musicology, at the Oldenburg University in Germany, supervised by Professor Violeta Dinescu and Professor Joachim Dorfmüller for his thesis towards spectral microtonal composing, a bridge between Arabic and Western music, and his microtonal and spectral composition opera, Quatmos. He got his master in composition at Tokyo National University of Fine Arts and Music in Tokyo, supervised by Professor Minami Hiroaki and Professor Matsushita Isao in 2004. He studied electronic and multimedia composition at Hamburg High Institute for Music and Theater. Chahin did his BA at Damascus Higher Institute of Music in 1999. He has been an assistant professor of composition at Homs University in Syria, Faculty of Music since 2005. He worked as a lecturer of composition and ethnomusicology at the Oldenburg University. He has received many scholarships like the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung in 2012, the scholarship of the Ministry of Higher Education in Syrian in 2007, the scholarship of the Ministry of Higher Education in Syrian in, in Japanese, Monbu Gakusho, sorry, I'm reading too fast. In 2000, okay, I'll take my time, in 2006, he has received many awards in composition and research from Syria, Cuba, Japan, and Germany. He's a member of the Arab-German Young Academy of Science and Humanities since 2018. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Rami Chahin, please.
Thank you very much, Augustine. I mean, it's my great pleasure being here. I hope you can see me and you can hear me. Just to check the sound first.
Yes, perfectly.
Super. Now I'm going to share my presentation. I hope also that it works well. Can you see it?
Yes, perfect.
Great. Okay. I don't know in which page I am now, actually. Okay. So I'm going to talk about microtonal music classifications and theory and education. Yeah, actually, it's I'll start by an introduction, definitions and terminologies, classifications of microtonal music, concepts in horizontal and vertical notation of microtonal music, features to describe the classifications of microtonal music, microtonality classifications in education, and at the end I'm going to make a small conclusion. So for introduction, actually I'm going just to go back to define some perhaps define things, but just to make it clear what I'm going to talk about. Of course, microtonality existed, or classifications. A person can start from hip hop music, jazz music. So microtonal music exists in most of musical styles and fields. So perhaps to classify music, microtonal music, it's not something new. But what I'm going to do is to define or how to classify the microtonals, how to define the use of microtonals in musical works or compositions. I'm going to use also some examples from my compositions, because actually I wrote many these classifications. I mean, perhaps it would be better to use it. During my study, I tried to compose pieces related to these classifications. First of all, I'm going to say that microtonal, every tuning system which is not belonging to the logarithm 2 or 12 equal tempered system. Then I'm going to say that semitone, it's what we can say that it's there are many definitions for semitone, which can be 100 cents, or for example, like Bach or Pythagorean definitions, where we can find two kinds of semitone, which is the lima, which is diatonic, and abutone, which is chromatic, and both of them, it's about 10 cents down and 13 cents up. So what's semitone, or when start the quarter tone, it's I'm trying also to bring it to mathematics, to say what's between, for example, when I'm talking about that 24th tempered system. So in this case, when it's between minus 25 and 74. So in this case, it's sorry. It's when it's between 25 and 74, so it's a quarter tone. If it's less, then it's a semitone, and it's a unison. And when it's more, so it's a semitone. I'm going also to use the 27th equal tempered system in my pieces and also in my works, because I find it's very easy for musicians. I mean, sometimes I don't like to make musicians also suffer from my works. So it's easy to deal with the 27th equal temper, because we have in the middle the half, the semitone, and we have the quarter tone, a little bit more than quarter tone, which is about 16 up and 16 also down from the semitone, so it's more comfortable. Of course, we know that if we are going to, for example, to write microtones for overtones, that would be catastrophic, because if we are real catastrophe, because when each overtone has its microtone. So if we are going to give a signature for each overtone, that means in 100 overtones, we will start to write about 50 accidentals. And I find that's a little bit extreme for musicians. And now, here up, I don't know if you are seeing that, 24th equal tempered system. I'm going to talk about the reason why I'm doing that. I'm using this 27th tempered system in the Congress, the first Congress in the Arabic world. they decided that Arabic music, it's 24th. We talked about that yesterday, I think. So we find that, for example, something like, well, I don't know if, is it now better? I don't know if it's now better. Anyway.
Yes, I was about to ask you, but I was just waiting to a good opportunity that I wouldn't
okay, great.
But it's better. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay. So, so I'm going just to show it. Perhaps it was not so much clear. Now I'm going back to talk about now that small definitions. So, for example, Bayat, Trust, and Siga. It's written the same in the 21st tempered system, but if we are going to write it in the 72 tempered system, we will find that it's different. And actually, Baya, Trust, Siga have the same E quarter tone, but it's different. I mean, it's not anymore quarter tone, it's different measurement. These measurements can be very much different. Depending on the theory or reality. We will talk about that also later. Now, the main question are, where should these microtones precise, where should they precise played, or is the temper of the sound, the temper of the sound important? And how can new theories based on traditional or other cultures' music be played without this making any deforming for the other culture? Okay, so I'll start by the classifications. It could be random, related to the temper of the tone, scientific or traditional. How can that be? Traditional, for example, random. I'm sorry, I'm going to start by random. Random classifications mean when we are not talking about certain tones. It's nature, I'm imitating nature, I'm imitating something special which is not needed to be precisely described. For example, here I'm writing a piece for a river. So the sound of the river, it's what's important. The musicians just play tones. I don't know if you hear it.
Yes, very clear. Thank you.
Super. So it's just sound of the river. Here, the musicians are free to play some tones. And no, it's not anymore. Yeah. For example, people in a cafe. So also it's, in this case, it's not important if they were playing specific tones, but it's important to play microphones, because if you are sitting in a cafe, you will not singing in a tonal way. The oboe plays microphones and other instruments. Or yes, of course, for example, like Chahin, he would play. Okay, now related to the timbre of the tone. For example, if we're talking about gamelan music, or the music that Sam played, like imitating a jungle or a bell in a church. So in this case, we are talking about inharmonic spectra tuning system, or harmonic, but it's mostly to be inharmonic because we are imitating something. We are trying not to follow the normal notations. So in this case, we are writing in microtonal due to special sounds. Of course, it can be, for example, I'm going to give an example from my opera, imitating the sounds of people singing. And it's imitating the sound itself. For example, if I'm saying, I am, it's not anymore I am, it's so the sound, how it goes from, like, for example, like saying sa, si, su. So it's this, it should be something like, for example, like simple, played with a metal brush. In this case, I'm trying to imitate the overtone of the sound. And here the singer is singing and the orchestra trying to sing with her, with the sounds. So for example, like saying sa, ga, ga, it's more like a drum, ba, ga. So it's like timpani playing or a big drum, which is different from sa or so, which is, and then o. So it's 2 or 3 tones sometimes. Oh, I'm sorry, it should be. Yeah, perhaps the sound is not very clear. The recording is not perfect. Yeah. So now talking about science. Science, there are 3, I think, 3 important points that I'm going to talk about. The first one is tuning due to mathematical or calculations, which has nothing to do directly with the rational numbers. In this case, we have the logarithm, which, for example, logarithm 2, which is the equal tempered system, or logarithm 3, 5, 4, 7, or sometimes the second point is to divide the scale, like in the example of the guitar, without mentioning which is the correct overtone or correct sound. In this case, we are following just mathematical or calculation or random choices, or in general, any when we are using high numerator and high non-zero denominator in rational, in the rational numbers. I'm going to give an example. I don't know why it's. So it's, for example, one of my works, I divided the cello to 81 tones with the logarithm 3. It's, I call it Sudoku. Of course, there is a reason why. Of course, now we are talking about mathematics. So does it have to do with real music life or not? This is what I'm going also to answer. Actually, the numbers, I took it from here. So I am not the real composer for the notes. Perhaps I did the idea. It's logarithm 3. I divided the cello to 9 main tones, and each division has 9 divisions. Subdivisions. Sorry, subdivisions. Of course, now the idea is that the player, now where is the music in this case? The player should have something like 81 or from 3, let's go, feelings of solving a problem. So starting the problem, his enthusiasm to solve it, is involved in solving, but at the end he would solve it. Here are the divisions in, also with the calculation which has nothing to do with pure sounds. And of course, the piece it has 81 tones, and it has a micro time also because it's divided to also to logarithmic times. So the piece should take about 81 seconds. We see here 9 lines. Each line has 9 tones. Of course, there are no repetition for notes as far as we know that there is no repetition in Sudoku. And now we are not going to listen to whole piece, I think, unless somebody would like to listen to it, he would find it at the internet. Now the idea is that it's 81 different tones, and the idea it's just computer calculate the things for you, and you will play it behind. You will put a background, an idea for to perform it. Oh, yeah. Also, in the second example about the calculation situation, when you are building an idea of from a tone to go up, for example, with 60 cents. Or 70 cents, and in this example, it's a sixth of the sounds, which is 16.666. So I'm moving between tones with certain. It's not rationals, which has to do with the tone itself, but it has to do with the logarithmic scale. So it's not a pure tuning, it's just calculation. And I meant with this composition just to see if the people can accept the idea of playing these tones, and especially with some melodies. Yep. Okay. Now to this point, we are talking about now tuning system based on timbre of the sound. So as Sam did, for example, it can be inharmonic, which is the sound of a glockenspiel, ringing bell. Or it could be a harmonic, which is related to the harmonic series. Now I'm defining the harmonic series or rational numbers. Why I'm saying always rational numbers, and I'm taking the low, the low number of denominators and the numerator, because actually due to Loi, so the higher you will have less energy. So now I'm talking about energy. I give just a hypothetical spectrum. It's not a real. I mean, somebody would come with and tell me, perhaps with this instrument I can play the 15th overtone clearly. I'll say okay, but it's just a hypothetical theory. And in this case, I'm taking the first 16 overtones as a whole, as the main tones, and I'm extending it for something like chromatic scale. So I'm using it in my pieces normally as a microtonal overtone scale. I'm calling it microtonal because many composers, unfortunately, playing the piano and as if it's for microtones. So, and down here is reaching the 32 overtones. Exactly, we talked about, so it can be both high and low. We were, for example, like Paul-Pierce scale, I think it was the 833 scale, cents scale. So it's you can see that there is a high and low rational numbers. Here I'm trying to do something also similar, like between tones here, they are not tuned to rational numbers, but down it's related to overtones. Actually, if you listen to a dissonance, it's not because of my composition, it's one of the musicians make a failure. So traditional music, I told you before that I'm going to talk about traditional way of the microtonal, in traditional way, which has nothing to do with theories. For example, I gave you before an example about Saba or Rast Maqam. And here we can see a singer from the desert in Syria singing something you would not find it in theory, because it's related sometimes to the instrument itself, the sound of the instrument, the timbre of the instrument, and the timbre of his sound itself, and the desert atmosphere. So all of these things play a big role in choosing the intervals and the microtones in this case, of course. We will listen to the musician from the desert. It's an old recording. It's more than 50 years old recording. He starts to sing the sound, his sound with the rababa, the instrument he's playing. So it's in full harmony, the sound, his sound with the sound of the instrument. And also now we'll talk about the time between playing each tone. I mean, he played a tone and he's waiting for a certain time, or he's giving this vibrato with his sound and with the tone he played. All of these atmosphere play a role in showing this kind of consonance in playing sounds. So now, after classifying the music, before we can find these classifications in three kind of tonality or cases. Three cases. It can be tonal, microtonal music, or microtonal atonal music, or unlimited microtonal music notation, which is, for example, like in Sudoku, we saw that there were. Okay, let's start from the first one. Tonal music, which can be start from a tone and move around this tone, perhaps not going back to the same tone, but for the other cases, we saw, for example, like if we are talking about microtonal atonal music, which is the same case like Sudoku, where the tones would not be repeated again. Unlimited microtonal notations, it's similar to when we play, for example, an overtone and we make a modulation from tone to another, or like Minus One Beautiful One, that piece that I composed in 2008, where we are going, for example, 70 cents. So in this case, like 70 plus 70 plus the 140 plus 70. So in this case, we will not reach an octave, and perhaps we will not go back to the same tone, and it's unlimited. But I'll give the example of modulation in overtones. So if we are playing in C and then we are moving from C overtones scale to a D overtone scales and then to F overtone scale. So we are not going, I didn't mean the F, which is undertone, tone. I meant the F, which is different from that one. Perhaps I can explain it later. So here I'm showing the some harmonic and inharmonic cases, multi-tunings, polyphony, contrapuntal music, just fast presentation. So it's like writing some researches in how to do your polyphonic music, and these cases can be used, for example, so this is a polyphonic example.
Last minute, please, Rami.
How many minutes?
One, please.
One. So in this case, this is the overtones modulation, and Of course, you can see the theory at the internet if you are interested. In education, you can use it, which these problems I suffered from it before. Also, in the type of improvisation, perhaps I use this minute in just explaining a few seconds of my last composition, which starts with improvisation. Okay, perhaps we don't have the time to listen to it now, so I'll say thank you for your attention, and I'm ready if anyone has a question. Perhaps a lot of information, but actually to classify microtonal music, it's not easy to classify it in 35 minutes and to give correct examples about each classification. Yeah, Augustine, back to you.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, Rami. Beautiful music, beautiful ideas. Yes. Do you have a link for the last composition that we can listen? I'm really sorry.
Actually, it's
maybe you can post it in the chat.
In Germany, we say it's Nagelneu, so it's still very recorded recently.
Fresh?
Recently, new recording. So I'm still waiting for to have the permission to put it at the internet. Anyway, I'll do my best to put it on my web page. So if somebody would like to see it, you can watch it also.
Otherwise, if you can also share it at the International Ecumenic Society
okay, in this case, I'll send it to you.
Or you can post it at the Ecumenic Facebook page.
Yeah.
So that we all get it.
Exactly. Can I say something about it? Just for example, the beginning of it, I wrote, perhaps you saw, just a scale with the flute or the knife. What I meant that perhaps a Japanese musician would come and tell me, I don't know Arabic music, so what I should do in this case. I told him, don't worry, you can improvise from your culture. And this is what I like to say in my presentation, that music or microtonal music, it's not a national, for example, when many people make a mistake saying that maqam music, it's an Arabic music. It's not an Arabic, it's a collection from all of the words. For example, you have ajam, it's from Greek Pythagorean scale. They have from Persian or Iran music a lot. They brought from India many, from China. So maqam music, it's not a national music. It's a collection. So sometimes I say maqam sudoku for my
yeah, I like those ideas very much, actually.
Yeah, and because of that, you have, for example, in the real microtonals, in Turkish music, you have 53 divisions for the octave. Arabic music has also more, but they stopped to use it. So because of that, of course, Arabic music lost a lot of microtonality. And this is what we are trying to do, that to bring this microtonality back, because each microtone bring you to another world. Just with small changing, for perhaps you heard the Bedouin singing. While he was singing, you feel that if somebody else would play Sabah, he would not be that sad as the Bedouin. I mean, the microtones brought this kind of feeling from heart, like it's more effective than the normal Sabah, which is sad, but it's okay, acceptable in singing.
Yes. Actually, what you just mentioned about Japanese and Arabic music, I thought also before when you were speaking, I thought straight away about the quotation early today, complex microtonal tissue mentioned at the lecture by Rafael Faust with Michael Quell. This kind of texture, and also yesterday we had 3 times we were discussing about this topic, and I'd like to ask you if you have any thoughts about it.
Of course,
excuse me. So when you said you are imitating the sound of people singing, do you have any thoughts about language intonation?
Of course, if, for example, if it's in Spanish language, so in this case, the whole composition should be changed. Completely.
Patricio Molina was speaking so much yesterday about this topic. I mean, not the only one, but...
I mean, because the composition itself relate to the language. I mean, pronunciation. If I'm saying gehe, it's ge. So the singer, she was singing in German. So now if I'm going to say going, it's or ear. For example, it's not like go, ear, go. So it's
yes. I think I already used today 4 different languages, so I know this mess. Sometimes you have to be very concentrating to try your best to get the intonation and get the consonants exactly the way it should be in this language.
The problem also, if you are like writing for somebody in Latin America and Spain, where in Andalusia, and so it's of course it's much different. So it's a kind of overtone notation, but it depends on hearing, not on notation. I'm not following a certain overtones. It's inharmonic spectra. In this case, I'll depend on my hearing. But other kind of composition. So if you would say I would like to compose in pure intervals. So in this case, you are going to that other classification, which is harmonic.
Yes, you change your plan, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'd like to ask in the group if anyone has any questions. I took so much time from you. I'm sorry. Any questions in the group? I'm checking also the chat. Okay, or maybe my colleague Johannes. Otherwise, I can ask you.
It will take too much time, I think. We'll discuss later on.
I think, as you were talking, actually, it could be me talking about my own music in many moments that you were talking, and also about these voices and about this talking of voices. I will mention this on Sunday. I'm presenting for the first time about my own ideas for guitar. And actually, first sensation I had with microtonal guitar using this scordatura and this cluster of small of microtone, 1/6 of a tone or smaller. Actually, I thought of my childhood. And I could hear a group of men singing in a religious ritual in the south of Spain. It was like this kind of cluster, and it's very interesting that how beautiful this is actually. At least it remained in my background, in my
Yeah, actually, if you are talking about Andalusia, you know, the influence of the Phoenician 3,000 years ago in South Spain. This is the first idea. The second idea, also in Christianity, Byzantine time, there were Johann the Damascene, who offered a lot of works and also worked with the tuning system itself, what's forbidden and what's allowed. These tuning systems also have something to do with Iran, Persia before. So actually, the extension of music and tuning systems from Orient to South Europe, it's old. And for example, when somebody comes and tells me Pythagorean scale, I say, come on, we have, for example, the Babylonian, it's 3,000 or 4,000 from now. So we're not talking about 2,000 years ago. Tuning systems and music instruments and other things, they were not nationalists. The people, there were no borders. So the people were just like tribes, like between south and north of Switzerland. So they go and learn from each other without problems. Nowadays, we are thinking in national way, but before, of course, it's music with love. So you won't say it doesn't belong to us. This microtones, this maqam, we will not going to, because it's not our music, and we are going to invent something new because it's ours then.
Yes. No, it belongs to all people, and there are more common bases as we can imagine in all music. I will talk about this in my lecture.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. If there are any other questions, I would like to ask you to write it in the chat. Otherwise, you can always use the Facebook Ekmelik page, of course. And yeah, thank you very much, Rami.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Yeah, very good. And I announced this morning I couldn't make it at the web page in case some of you watched it, were there at the Ekmelik web page today or yesterday. There's a little change in the title of next presentation by Dan Lippel. It's not going to be exploring microtonality in guitar repertoire. I mean, we have very good news. He will present, like Rami said before, Nugget Noi, very, very fresh topic. And it's Ken Ueno's Ghost, Flower, and Overtone-based scordatura. I hope I said the composer's name properly. Dan might correct me. Thank you. I don't know if you're already there. Guitarist Daniel Lippel, called as an exciting soloist by the New York Times and precise and sensitive by the Boston Globe, has a multifaceted career as a performer and recording artist. He has premiered more than 50 solo and chamber works, many written for him, recording several on his label, New Focus Recording. Recent performance highlights include recitals at Le Poisson Rouge in New York, Sinus Tone Festival in Germany, National University of Colombia in Bogota, and the New York and Cleveland Classical Guitar Societies, and chamber performances on the Mosley Mozart Festival, OJ Festival, Ottawa Chamber Festival, Aspecte Festival here in Salzburg, and Kunstuniversität Graz in here also near Salzburg. He has worked closely with many eminent composers, including Mario Davidovsky and Nils Vigeland. In addition to New Focus recordings, he appears on recordings on several other labels, including Kairos, Bridge, Innova, Sonor Luminous, Albany, Tzadik, Vergo, and New World. As an educator, Lippel has given guitar master classes and presentations at institutions including the Hans Heisler Hochschule in Berlin, Curtis Institute, Sydney Conservatory of Music in Australia, San Francisco Conservatory, Cleveland Institute of Music, Peabody Institute, University of Texas at Austin, and the New York University. He received his DMA from the Manhattan School of Music, studying with David Starobin. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Dan Lippel.
Thanks so much, Augustin. And
you're here. Great to see you.
Yes, good to see you too. In order for me to, am I already made a host for me to share my screen?
If Maria
it seems so. Yes, it seems so. Great. Okay, thank you. So thanks everybody for joining me today. And the piece I'd like to discuss is by Ken Ueno. It's called Ghost Flower. It was written in 2017. The solo guitar version. There's actually another version of this piece for trio, for guitar, viola, and dulcimer. And the piece is written with an overtone-based tuning built from a detuned low C string, the sixth string down to C. But it's still played on an equal-tempered fretboard. So before I get further into it, why don't I just play the tuning for you? We have the third string to the 7th fret harmonic G, the 4th string to the 5th partial 9th fret harmonic E, 7th partial, 2nd string B flat minus 31 cents, and then the top string is to the 11th partial plus 51 cents, and then interestingly, Ken doubles the plus 51 cent pitch on the 5th string, sort of misregistering that partial, which I think ends up being a fairly salient feature of the piece as it goes forward, and we can discuss that a bit more. So, get this very resonant open string sonority. One of the results of using a tuning like this on an equal tempered fretting system, of course, is that we get a sort of duality of string function. We've got the open strings and the harmonics, which are primarily engaging with the sonority of the C overtone series. Though Ken also navigates through the tuning using different notes of the open string tuning as a sort of temporary central pitches. So that sort of anchors the structural organization of it. And the harmonics, actually, he doesn't go into high partial harmonics, so there isn't necessarily a need to do a sort of compound calculation of the sense differential for the most part, because it's rarely going beyond the perfect fifth. So, but I guess ostensibly in an overtone tuning like this, if you did use a higher partial harmonic, it's interesting that you'd be layering on different sense differentials, of course. So I'm going to mostly discuss the different sense differentials between these pitches within the context of equal temperament. It seems like that's probably the simplest way to consider this. So the result of the tuning actually is that intentionally or not, there's sort of these three pairs of associated strings. The sixth string and the third string, since the two-cent tuning differential isn't really functional, end up being more or less paired in the same place of the temperament matrix. The fifth string and the first string, of course, are both 51 cents sharp. So we established a quasi-quarter tone function throughout the piece that is both coloristic in terms of how it relates to the other pitches, but also I think my feeling is that it posits a sort of contrasting sort of pitch space in the temperament and almost works as a sort of a dissonant harmonic area. And finally, the fourth string and the second string, even though they're not tuned the same number of cents away from ET, I think they function similarly. They're both compressions, so minus 14 cents and minus 31 cents. And so I think the ear understands them as sort of associated with each other. So I think when it Ken sort of started working, I'm hypothesizing, I haven't actually talked to him about this, but when he started working on this piece, I think he sort of embraced the inherent problem and conflict in having this overtone-based tuning realized on a well-tempered fretboard, and tried to come up with ways to sort of delay the reveal, as it were, of the sort of genesis of the piece, the tuning, and have it really preserve some kind of structural trajectory. So the piece evolves actually from an austere intro that's primarily non-pitched elements. And then we start to get some of the pitches introduced gradually in a very compressed register. And then the body of the piece is sort of an exploration of these different pitch areas that are suggested by different open strings of the tuning. And then finally, we get the coda, which is more improvisatory, and the tuning's expressed explicitly in the actual register of the overtone series. So first, let's take a look at this intro, which is primarily, as I said, non-pitched, as the pitches slowly emerge as if from a cocoon. The main element that underlies the texture in the intro is this contoured scraped glissandi. And then breaking up those phrases are accented flicks with the right hand, and then accented glissandi direction changes, and then eventually the gradual introduction of two pitches to frame the microtonal context. Of course, the listener has not yet heard the full spectrum of the tuning. So at this point, all we're hearing is this contrast between the E minus 14 cents and an E quarter sharp plus 51 cents on the fifth string. So I'll play some examples that give you some context for how this intro unfolds. My apologies, I seem to have lost my presentation screen. Here we go. So let's just find this page again. So as that introduction develops, we hear more rhythmic compression of events. The accented flicks get closer and sort of provide more direction. And then eventually we get these two pitches introduced, the E on the open fourth string minus 14 cents, which is just the expression of the fifth partial, and then this sort of quasi upper neighbor E quarter sharp on the fifth string plus 51 cents. And it's interwoven into a texture where it's a dialogue between these non-pitched and pitched elements. Oh, I'm not sure why it's doing this. I think for the sake of not losing this page, I'll just give you with the presenter notes if you don't mind. So you can hear that there's also a gradual shortening of note values. And what Ueno is doing is he's beginning to prepare what will eventually sort of lead into a running 16ths texture. So as we get into the main section of the piece, the scraped glissandi stop becoming a sort of consistent element and become a sort of connective feature of the texture and are eventually phased out entirely. And there's an establishment of this moto perpetuo texture that's almost like a Fortspielung type of approach to exploring these different areas of pitch concentration. And the F quarter sharp fifth string, as things unfold, starts to assert itself as a contrasting central pitch. Another feature that emerges is that there are Bartok pizzicati that start to emerge as a punctuation of phrase endings, not unlike the way that the accented flicks were functioning in the opening. And also accents within the 16th note texture to establish these sort of small rhythmic cadences. So let's listen first to the transitional moment when the scrapes are sort of phasing out and Ueno starts to develop this dialogue between these very compressed intervals on the 4th, 5th, and 6th strings, all E's, 3 different versions of E, one 14 cents flat, one at equal temperament because it's on the 6th string, and one a quarter sharp plus 51 cents. So as you can hear, everything is very compressed. And again, the ear doesn't really have a context for this yet. All we know is that we have this very compressed register, more or less 65 cents wide. And we're trying to sort of ascertain, well, what is the sort of basic central pitch for this matrix at this point? Gradually, more pitches are introduced, and we get the first F quarter sharp, which is ends up sounding essentially like an upper neighbor to the E quarter sharp. And then we start to hear the introduction of the open third string, the G plus 2 cents. And so now we've got a sort of triadic component for the first time, but it's a little bit ambiguous because of the shifting the E's below the G. And then we now, Ueno moves one step further and introduces this open second string B flat, 31 cents flat. Also remains ambiguous until measure 128 when it's contextualized within the context of a C fundamental. And we actually get the C in the end of 121. And then that starts to really frame this opening up of a sort of C overtone series based sound. So you can hear at this point, it's now become very clear sort of the context for all of these different shadings of pitch, because we finally got the C, but nothing is happening in its sort of naturally occurring register. Everything is still compressed because our C is an octave higher, our B flat is an octave lower than it would occur in the overtone series. We've got this rogue F quarter sharp that's in the sort of low mid register, which is sort of pretty drastically misregistered. So it's an interesting sense that there's some degree of clarity and resolution, but I think there's a lot of potential here for increased ambiguity, and I think you'll hear that happening in the piece as it unfolds. Just to look a little more carefully at these pitches, this is all more or less goes without saying, but we have these notes that are sort of expressed in relation to C as a root, of course, the major third, and then the E quarter sharp plus 51 cents is like a sort of quasi-perfect fourth, or imperfect fourth, I guess you could say, really mostly acting as a 4-3 motion back to the major third. We've got the B flat, which is sort of static as the septimal minor seventh. And then we've got this harmonic on the 5th string, 7th fret, a C quarter sharp plus 51, which is, again, a sort of quasi minor ninth upper neighbor. As things move forward, one thing that Ueno does to try to sort of vary the harmonic color of the unfolding of the piece is by shifting the primary lowest pitch that's being reinforced. So in this next excerpt, we hear him sort of shifting to a quasi, what we might call a first inversion, an emphasis on the 4th string E, if we're still thinking in terms of this as a sort of C overtone series based harmony. We also start to hear notes that are happening on the 1st string, both the open 1st string, but then also some figuration that sort of moves up by whole step on the 1st string. Again, the 1st string is tuned plus 51 cents. And an interesting thing starts to develop. The A quarter sharp 51 cents that you see in measure 148 is actually fairly close to the B flat minus 31 cents. So there's a sort of evolving connection between an augmented 6th and a septimal minor 7th between those two pitches. We then, so to look more carefully at these collections as well, understood within the context of a quasi first inversion chord, we've got we've got the E minus 14 cents, the major third above C. Of course, we've got the G as well, and the B flat. And then we have these figures on the top string. They're all the 51 cents up, sort of a quasi-augmented 4th, augmented 5th, and augmented 6th. And again, it sort of posits this other matrix area for understanding how the pitches are related to each other that's bumped up by this quarter tone. I suppose that you could also, I think it's sort of interesting to consider this not so much as an inversion, but actually just as a shift in harmony altogether with the E as a root. And then the B flat becomes either a narrow augmented 4th or a wide perfect 4th at 555 cents. And again, the 51 cent differential on the top string produces some interesting intervals, narrow major 2nd, narrow major 3rd, narrow augmented 4th at 165, 365, and 565. I don't know that it's safe to say that these internal intervallic relationships are entirely Ueno's point. I think from my sense of the piece is that he recognized that there was this inherent conflict between the fretting system and the tuning, and he wanted to try to produce evolving harmonic interest, but also have a sort of internal section that was sort of functioning like a development. and he recognized that there was going to be a certain degree of ambiguity between these pitches and these different pairings of strings, and because of the fretting. And so he sort of takes advantage of it by moving the central sort of pedal pitches around, and our ear is sort of guessing, have we modulated? Are we in an inversion? What is the space we're in? And then I think you'll see eventually sort of resolves that a bit later. So continues to move the quasi pedal up now to the third string G with this passage that you'll hear in a moment. Continue to do the figuration on the first string plus 51 cents. And then he starts to introduce these accents on an A quarter sharp on the fifth string that really start to destabilize the harmony and take us away from the sort of equal tempered context that is asserted by the low C, and move us into sort of an ambiguous quarter tone land. So what I find interesting is that as he's asserting these different pitches, we also, the resonance, the open tuning, whenever open strings are used, is so powerful that it sort of pulls your ear back to understanding things in the context of a sort of C fundamental. So it establishes a little bit of a push and pull between whatever he might be doing to try to move things into a contrasting harmonic area versus this very sort of overarching sense of a C overtone series ringing that's happening. Again, this close association between the A quarter sharp and the B flat, 50 plus 51 cents versus minus 31 cents, establishes an interesting, almost enharmonic duo as a temporary central pitch for a few bars. And then we start to hear the F quarter sharp open string, fifth string asserting itself as a temporary central pitch as the sort of beginning of a lot of phrase, sort of micro phrases, and it sets it up to become a pedal in the subsequent section, which we'll hear in a moment. So first I'll play this first positing of this F quarter sharp. So I think what I hear when I'm listening to this is sort of going back and forth between still hearing the C's as the central pitch, but then when the F quarter sharp is sort of reinforced a lot in a compressed time period, my ear starts to sort of want to shift a bit. And again, just looking, it's sort of almost like a thought experiment of looking at the F quarter sharp plus 51 cents as the root. What we end up getting, the A quarter sharp that's on the fifth string in the same matrix as the major third, of course, the equal tempered major third, and the C quarter sharp harmonic ends up just being a plus 53 cents. And so it's a very sort of functional perfect fifth. The open fourth string minus 14 cents E is a sort of interesting wide diminished fifth. It's sort of close to the quarter comma diminished fifth at 930 cents. The C natural ends up being a very narrow diminished fifth. The B flat ends up being a narrow diminished fourth, also close to a quarter comma diminished fourth at 427 cents, or a wide major third, which I think probably the wide major third is the thing that might draw you more to feel like there's this association again with the A quarter sharp and thinking of the F quarter sharp as the root for a moment. And then finally, we've got the G plus 2 cents, which is in this context a wide minor ninth. So what happens next is that if we think of this area with the F quarter sharp as a sort of positing a pedal tone that is contrasting and has sort of tension built into it, Ueno sort of sets up what you might call a polytonal struggle between that area, the plus 51 cent area with the F quarter sharp as a pedal and a root, versus these higher harmonics that happen in 195 and going further, which sort of suggests like a G dominant seventh chord with some extensions. And it's a really interesting passage, I think, particularly because of the registral distinction. We hear these two different areas that are sort of battling for primacy. And again, that first string figuration that you heard towards the end of the excerpt there, happening all on the top string, which is plus 51 cents, which again reinforces this connection with the low F quarter sharp plus 51 cents. Looking at the collections and sort of considering which is the more compelling explanation, either we have the F quarter sharp plus 51 cents as the root, which I discussed a moment ago, but if you add these various harmonics, we get a narrow augmented fourth, a wide minor seventh, and a diminished octave. Or if you think of it in terms of a polytonal collection, we've got this F quarter sharp matrix between the first and fifth strings, which is sort of an expression of this destabilized, misregistered open fifth string that we've known was a sort of problem to be addressed from the beginning. And then on the top, we have this, what I sort of hear as a G7 sharp 913. I think you could also maybe understand it as like an E, some kind of E minor chord with a sharp 4. But it can be sort of heard as a preparatory dominant to the C overtone, the overarching C overtone series sound that we know, well, we can suspect that we're probably going to come back to. And indeed, we now hear at 8 minutes into the piece the first occurrence of the fundamental from which the whole tuning is based.
Excuse me, Dan, can we
Yes.
go to questions in 2 minutes, please?
Yeah, I think I should be able to wrap up in 2 minutes. Thanks. So here is that moment. So you can hear the open strings are really the sort of focus of the pitch collection. We get more of this first string figuration, which is plus 51 cents, but now it feels very coloristic as opposed to functional. We have one more, the longest figuration phrase happens towards the end of this section, and for a moment it reestablishes the F quarter sharp as a temporary pedal. And then the no values start to lengthen in the opposite way that we heard from the intro, where they were compressing as Ueno starts to prepare a coda that's much more. And then we do, in fact, get a half tempo marking at the coda, and now box notation exploration of rhythmically free material that actually discovers the overtone series primarily in register with the G actually an octave high. And then finally, on the very final page, with after a brief allusion to a D-augmented triad that just feels as sort of like a penultimate harmony, we finally get the actual tuning with the overtone series revealed in the correct register, but notably he leaves out the misregistered F quarter sharp. So the sort of problem note to begin with is purged from the texture for the final gesture. So my sense is that in creating this tuning and recognizing that there was going to be a certain amount of ambiguity, putting this on an equal temperament fretting, the choice to misregister the F quarter sharp on the 5th string was both facilitated Ken's ability to have this very compressed pitch language in the low to mid register to create ambiguity, especially at the beginning of the introduction of the pitch material. But also sort of built in this problem to be solved that also allowed him to create a certain amount of harmonic ambiguity in a contrasting harmonic area that sort of ramps the texture up by a quarter tone every once in a while before being resolved. And to my mind, it gives the piece extra depth so that it isn't necessarily just a sort of constant unfolding of the same overtone-based sonority for 12 minutes. So thanks so much for listening. I'm happy to take questions or talk about the piece if anybody's curious.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Thank you.
Wow, fantastic presentation. Yes, I'd like to ask in the group if anyone would like to go for a first question, please.
Sure, John.
Hey, Dan.
Hey, Johnny, how's it going?
Doing pretty well, thank you.
Great, great.
Pleasure. I didn't know that Ken Ueno did such a lovely piece.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, because I guess my reaction to everybody has a different approach to the theory perspectives than it does to some of the other presentations. Because the theory perspectives are wrapped up with terminology that actually sets me off, Like when you say imperfect fourth, I just go to question how perfect is the 5th or the 4th? I mean, is the word perfect a problem before we get into callings? Or if you say 11/20 is a diminished octave, I'm thinking actually the leading tone G sharp has the most variations in the overtone series of any other note. So I would not use that particular terminology. Misregister. I was just taking some notes, of the terms, The misregister thing is, I don't know if it's a misregister because I see major thirds and minor thirds as happening at the same time in the overtone series. I mean, one happens a little sooner, but they do happen at the same time as you go up the series. So misregistering is an interesting approach to it. I can understand why you'd say that because you're putting the F quarter tone sharp in the bottom. But when you say, let's see, which note was it that you said it?
The F quarter sharp.
No, it was the C. That's right, C quarter sharp.
Oh, right, with the harmonic on that string.
Right,
yeah.
Maybe it's the other one too. C quarter sharp plus 51 is C sharp. But, now it's not C sharp. It's a 1 cent sharp C sharp, but probably only 1 cent sharp because of the fractions. that you have to lose to go into integers? Or it's a 51 from the 11th harmonic?
No, so I was doing a 51 from like thinking of it in terms of
tablature,
in terms of ET from the low C.
Right.
So
I understand that, but this is my, without talking much further on this, I mean, this is just one aspect to listening to it. I wonder if my ear doesn't throw away the whole idea of root.
Sure.
And just hear, which is what I do in the 128 tuning. I hear only tonicization.
Okay.
And maybe it's a less threatening term.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
I
think, I mean, I understand that words like misregister have a sort of pejorative, unintentional pejorative subtext to them. And I think I only meant that since every other string was tuned within the sort of ascension of the harmonic series. And then that's the only one where he sort of doubles back and puts it lower. And so from my point of view, I wanted to try to understand what that afforded him. What did that allow him to do? And I think it gave him the chance to have these sort of three different sort of matrices for pitch in that register, like the way we have the revealing of the E's at the beginning. And there's the minus 14 cents, there's the one that's right at 0, and then there's the plus 51. But the way I see the structure unfolding, I think either he intentionally made that string that way to do this, or he realized later, I've got this great opportunity to have this alternate pedal point that provides some sort of harmonic contrast to the low C, since that C is so dominant. So if some of my language suggested that I was
right, I love it because I know your explanation is like complete.
Yeah,
I have no question. Really,
some of the terms, I see what you're saying. I think I'll think more carefully about those. Thanks.
Well, it's just an aspect. It's just an aspect to the presentation.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if I have to hear root at all. Is my final point on that.
Yeah,
another theorist would do it differently, and I'm wondering if the composer, have you spoken to the composer about your analysis?
Not the specific. I mean, we've spoken about the piece, of course, but not the specifics of this talk.
Okay, so and that might be interesting because he may or not, But gosh, my last point I lose. Oh yes, I was just wondering if rubato would be like the biggest enemy, is what I wrote down, to what you're trying to achieve. In other words, I don't know what the implication in the score is that you don't change the metric pulse.
Yeah, that is the implication. Yeah,
it's an implication, though, right?
I mean, it doesn't.
If you added it, would it change any of the things you talked about?
I think it has the potential to, if I structured the rubato in such a way that really sort of added tenutos and lingered on certain pitches in the same way that it would if you did that in sort of Baroque music. That's a great idea, and I should talk to him about that as well. My sense from him is that he wanted something to be sort of very charging and relentless. But a different reading, I think, could be possible and really interesting, would reveal different things about the piece.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Johnny.
Well, any more questions? We still have two more minutes for the question section. Anyone?
From Manfred. Can you
Yes.
hear me?
Yes, very well.
It's very interesting that Wolfgang Schweinitz just chose the same interval to distort his harmonicity on C. It's very, very close to the guitar piece we heard today. For his tuba is tuned in 11:8 ratio to the overall orchestra. And when this tuba appears kind of at the very end of the piece, everything is distorted. Let's think of the B flat, which is normally B flat minus 31 cents as a natural seventh. I use this term now. all of a sudden, this is a wrong, distorted major third to this F, which appears in the bass. So this seems to be the idea with Wolfgang Schweinitz, to really distort the whole orchestra. And for this guitar piece, it's very clear that the composer just wants to make our ears lively somehow. There is something happening. So, Johnny, what I think is the right term which Daniel used. There is a wrongness, an intentional wrongness in the whole harmonicity. So I would love to have this term wrong, and so I would love to stick to these terms, to distort us or to make us lively as listeners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, you were actually describing it as ambiguity, right?
Ambiguity between two centers, between two primes somehow. Yes.
Yeah, I love it actually, this concept.
Well, I also wonder, I mean, maybe, he could have said that the fifth string would have been G or E minus 14 cents or B flat minus 31 cents. I think he might have chosen that plus 51 cents precisely because the quarter tone relationship would be the most destabilizing. It would be the hardest for the ear to try to integrate sort of in a gestalt way within this other sort of prevailing harmony.
Yes, and this was the intention of Wolfgang Schweinitz, his colleague, also apparently.
Yeah.
The tritone, yes. In a term which Johnny doesn't like. The tritone. What is the tritone?
I wouldn't say that I don't like it. I would say, I would just describe maybe differently. Like the opening to me is like the keyboard teacher slamming down with two arms all the notes to clear the air. So like there's a disorientation encouraged by the composer, so you don't have the pitch material, as you pointed out. That is to say, okay, first we got to clean you up before we can take you to the movies. So this introduction is a different interpretation. I'm thinking of dance music for some reason, where they create these tunes of three notes, and that's it electronically. And it's a composition. Like every bit of time is accounted for and utilized, but it's still three notes. I don't know if your experiences with some of that. I had to work with some students it was CW Post College that I was teaching music composition.
Are you talking about like EDM style stuff, like electronic dance music type stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. I sort of know the sound you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes. I thought he was going for that.
Oh, at the beginning. Yeah. Well, that's what's cool about it. It's very ambiguous when those first two or three pitches are introduced. We really don't know what this piece is going to be at all yet. And I think the pacing is very skillfully managed.
I was very impressed by it. We heard a piece by, I guess on the first day, by Georg Haidu, of a guitar solo that he was calling hybrid, where he was putting together two different tunings, and I was suggesting there's a third one involved. And a fourth one might be just the environment. I mean, you almost don't think of the environment producing harmony, but it does provide, certainly if you're making recordings, it's a sense of space, right? A wetness, a way to do any kind of variation with it. I mean, it's like another performer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you let me say something, Johnny, I think these ideas, they work really well on the guitar using the open strings and then the whole strings. Probably, you mentioned at the beginning, I was really curious about it. There was another version for 3 instruments. I don't know if you mentioned string instruments or guitars.
Viola and hammered dulcimer.
And how is the tuning distributed? I was really, I mean, I thought it was string trio and
yeah, the hammer dulcimer is in the scordatura. I actually don't totally remember if the viola is as well, but certainly the viola is the scoring for the viola is matching up with my sort of tuning matrix. The guitar part is exactly the same, and the other two instruments are sort of weaving in and out, sometimes at unison, sometimes with sort of contrasting material. But it's almost like a palimpsest piece. You know, this guitar piece is fixed, and then there's these other two. I probably can. Oh, actually,
so the atmosphere remains, because sometimes if you change the tuning, you divide, you distribute the scordatura in a different way. The atmosphere changes completely.
Yeah, of course. No, the guitar scordatura is exactly the same.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating version. It's the same piece, and it's also a totally different piece at the same time.
It's in your Bandcamp as well, maybe?
No, we haven't recorded that one yet. That's
okay.
Next stage.
Okay, yeah.
Next step. I had to get this part down first.
You know, I'd like to beg your pardon. We should go to a break. We should eat something before the next one. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we will see you in 24 minutes, actually. Okay. See you later. Thank you.
Bye.